Oh, Instant Pot Heads. Welcome to another episode of Cuong Can Cook. Now today we're not actually even going to cook anything. I wanted to take some time out to get people acquainted with their Instant Pot. Let's go over a little bit about what the features are and how our Instant Pot works, alright? That way we all start on the same page, and from now on as we start cooking, we'll all know what the terms mean and we'll have a lot better time cooking together, alright? You'll notice all these buttons. These are the different programming buttons. Soup, meat and stew, bean and chili, poultry, slow cooked yogurt, steam, porridge, multigrain, and rice, as well as saute, manual, timer, keep warm, and then adjustments for all of them. It comes with a stainless steel liner. Now, every time you use the Instant Pot, you need to use this liner. It's just like a rice cooker. You don't just put rice straight into the pot, all right? Let's take a look inside our Instant Pot, and you'll see there is the heating element here and a spring-loaded trigger. This tells the Instant Pot that the inner pot is in place so that it can start cooking. All right. Never ever put stuff directly in here because you don't cook stuff straight in here. If you do, don't worry. Try to turn it upside down, get everything back out. You don't want weird things happening in here. And if you do get stuck, you can take the bottom off. There's a screw here, and then you can take the bottom off and get everything out that you actually got in there. This is one of the things I love about the Instant Pot, that it's got a stainless steel insert. Nothing non-stick, nothing's gonna be coming off of it, all right? It's dishwasher safe, although hand washing, I recommend hand washing just to make sure that it always stays in fantastic condition. Let's take a look at the lid. The lid itself is also amazing. Hey, there's gonna be a lot of pressure in here, right? And you have to be able to close it, and that's what venting and sealing does. But the funny thing is, it pops right off very easily. It's barely held in place, and you wonder, hey, how can something that's just barely held in place hold back all that pressure? Well, it does. That's the really cool thing about the Instant Pot. It's engineered so well. So this comes off if you need to clean it, and you'll probably have to clean it often. Sometimes when you release the vent valve, you let the steam out, it will, depending on what you're cooking, if it's starchy, it can ooze out the top. So this comes off for cleaning. And then right next to it is the float pin, the pin valve, or a floating pin valve. If I turn it upside down like this, you can see it pop up. When it pops up, it enacts a safety feature. One, when it pops up, it tells you that the pot itself is sealed and you're building up pressure. But once it's popped out, you'll notice on the bottom, there is a safety pin here. Okay, and when it's up like this, you'll see you won't be able to spin the lid open, all right? This is going to catch on the indentation right here on the pot. It slides right along here and it gets stuck here if this pin can't slide all the way out. And how does it slide all the way out? When it's right side up, of course, and the float pin valve is down, as you can see. And when the safety pin valve is down, this pin on this side can float all the way to the top, flush with the pot, and when it does that, you'll be able to get it open. It won't be in the way of that little tab, all right? So that's one of the safety features about the lid. Let me tell you something else about the lid as well. You're gonna hear about the silicone ring a lot. This silicone ring that runs around the outside, is very important. It's what allows the pot itself to make a good seal, all right? And when you need to take it off, it's pretty easy. It pulls right out, okay? This is also dishwasher safe. You wanna wash it every once in a while, make sure there's no gunky stuff in it. So take good care of your silicone ring. Sometimes it's gonna smell. It rarely transfers these smells to the food that you're cooking. But make sure that if you do take it off, that you put it back, because the next time that you cook with it and you don't have it in place, you're going to wonder why your Instant Pot isn't working. Really easy to put back as well. This retaining ring in here, you just make sure that it fits inside the groove there, and you're ready to go. All right. One more aspect about this lid, this right here keeps food from clogging the vent valve and that floating pin valve. So on this side, we got the vent valve, venting, sealing, and the floating pin valve. And what the manufacturer doesn't want is sometimes food can get clogged in here and then won't be able to release the pressure. And this just fits right in place and it keeps the food out of there. You're going to want to take that off, clean it regularly, and make sure that your lid is clean. All right. Let's talk a little bit about how this pot itself works, okay? This is a pressure cooker. The reason why it's so much better than a regular cooker is that it cooks under pressure. What do I mean by pressure? Let me introduce you to the ideal gas law. Now, you probably already heard of this if you ever took high school chemistry. If you remember, it goes something like this. PV equals nRT, where P is pressure, V is volume, N is the number of moles of gas that you have, R is the gas constant, and T is the temperature. Okay, now in a closed system like this pot that is 6 quarts, the gas, the volume, and the gas constant are all constants. Okay, so once you close the lid and you get things going, these 3 things are constant. And what the Instant Pot is doing is it's raising the temperature. If you raise the temperature in this equation, what happens then if volume is constant is you raise the pressure. And what that means is that a lot of pressure is building up inside of your Instant Pot. Why is this good? I don't know if you know how turbochargers work. Turbochargers on an engine force more air into the engine, and then the engine's more powerful. So if you think of this as a turbocharged cooking process, where we force more pressure into the cooking, it cooks like it's turbocharged. The water boils at a higher temperature when under pressure. So where normal water boils at 212 degrees, we're able to cook our food at 230 to 245 degrees. Your food's gonna cook a lot faster. All that pressure mixes up and forces itself in on your meat. It makes your meat more tender. So by having this under pressure, you're cooking better. And that's why the Instant Pot method works so well. Now, how do you build up that pressure? You have to have some kind of liquid. Heating up dry air won't cause enough pressure to make this cook. All right? So let's run through a demonstration. And our first test is what we call the water test to make sure your Instant Pot works. If you just got your Instant Pot and you took it out of the box, you're gonna wanna run the water test. And here's how we do it. Open the lid, make sure that your inner pot is in place. You're gonna pour 3 cups of water in here. I'm starting with hot water because we're gonna make it hot anyway. However, you could start with regular temperature water and that won't be a problem either. Okay? So we got our water in place. We put the lid back on. And we'll set it to manual and let it go. What manual is gonna do, first it says manual in 30 minutes. We can change this before it starts. And this means that we're telling it, once you get up to pressure, cook for this long, this many minutes before you stop. So I set it to manual 1. What I'm telling it is, once you come up to pressure, cook for 1 minute and then turn yourself off. So let's see what it does. It says on. The heating element's coming up and it's going to start to boil that water. As the water boils, it expands, right? PV equals nRT. The water's going to expand, fill up the space inside of here. Because it's got so much air, there's only 2 places where it can come out. It can come out the hole where the floating pin valve is and the hole where the vent valve is. When we set the vent valve to ceiling, there's really only 1 hole it can come out of, and that's the floating pin valve. If you imagine all that air rushing past the valve, at a certain point, the valve's gonna come up to the top, seal the whole system off, and everything's gonna be under pressure. Now the pot itself is smart, because if you can imagine, if we keep building up and building up and building up the pressure, at some point, like a balloon, it's gonna pop. That would be dangerous. And if you've ever used pressure cookers in the past, that's one of those things that everybody was afraid of, the exploding pressure cooker. This pot is smart. It's got a pressure sensor inside. So the pressure sensor tells the pot, hey, there's too much pressure. It backs off on the heat. It will not let itself explode, and it's got a lot of safety features in place. In fact, you would think, oh, what happens if the pressure sensor breaks? If the pressure sensor breaks, it knows that the pressure sensor is broken and it won't let you use it. You're gonna end up with the C6 error message on the front that says, hey, my pressure sensor is broken. And the pot knows that that's a dangerous condition, will not let you use it. If you do see a C6 error message, you've got to call the Instant Pot company and let them know, open up a trouble ticket to tell them that your pot, the pressure sensor is broken, and they will work with you if it's under warranty or whatever it takes to make sure that your pot gets fixed. All right, so we're gonna let this go. It's gonna take a few more minutes to build up the pressure, boil that water, get the thing sealed, and then we'll work right after that, all right? Stay right here. As you can see, the floating pin valve has floated all the way to the top, which means that our system is sealed. It's beeping now, meaning that our 1 minute cook time has just finished, and will now start counting up from 0 to let us know how long it's been since the cook time has finished. This is especially important as we now consider ways to release the pressure inside. Now that it's finished the cook time, it's been 1 minute since it finished, okay? We need to consider how we're gonna release the pressure. You're gonna hear about 2 different ways to release pressure. NPR, which means natural pressure release. You don't do anything. Think of it as no pressure release. You let it sit. As the pot cools down, it will release the pressure on its own, and when you come back in 10 to 15 minutes, the pin valve will fall down on its own. That's natural pressure release. You don't do anything. You may also hear of a term called quick release, QR. When you quick release, that means you're going to do something to the vent valve to let all the pressure out as fast as you can and let the pin valve come down. Natural pressure release means we just wait. Quick pressure release means you take something like our stick and you can turn the vent valve. When you turn the vent valve, it lets all the steam out. And then if you watch, the floating pin valve is going to come down in a second. So when the floating pin valve's fallen down, the lock mechanism is released. You can go ahead and spin and take the lid off. Okay? Another cool thing about the Instant Pot is it's got the lid holders on both sides. You can stick this little groove in here and it'll hold your lid up. Don't recommend that you store it this way. If you lever the lid, this will break off. So I wouldn't recommend you leaving it this way for very long. However, while you're cooking in it, the lid holder is very convenient. Okay? And that's it. You've completed the water test. You've proven that everything in the Instant Pot is working just fine. And now we're ready to move on to actually cooking with our Instant Pot. A couple other things that I forgot to mention. This is the trivet. It is a wire rack that you can use. It comes with the Instant Pot. And you sit this inside the pot, and whatever you place on it is above the bottom of the pot, and it'll keep it from getting too hot on its bottom. Okay, so sometimes your recipes will ask for things on the trivet. The other thing I forgot to mention is that we have a condensation cup right here. Okay, it slides right on to the back. It slides right on here. Okay. What happens is that any condensation along the rim flows down here and into this little hole, and it's caught in the condensation cup. It's really nice. It keeps your kitchen from getting all messy. However, one thing you should do is make sure that you check the condensation cup and empty it out every once in a while. You don't want to have a science experiment growing back here. Okay, as you remember from the ideal gas law right here, we know that the temperature goes up, the pressure goes up. And honestly, we are all under a lot of pressure in our lives, and that's why we love the Instant Pot. I'm under pressure at work, I'm under pressure at home. There's all types of pressures, and we don't need this pressure while we're cooking, okay? Let's leave the pressure in the Instant Pot. Now, how do I deal with this pressure? Now, that's easy. Let me tell you about how Cuong cooks, all right? Cuong likes to cook without a lot of pressure, without a lot of friction, as a well-oiled machine. And the way we stay well-oiled is to stay lubricated while we cook. And that's why I say stay lubed while you're cooking. Now, it doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be whatever your favorite beverage is, okay? If you do not partake in alcohol, that doesn't mean you don't get to be lubricated. I just call it cooking lube because it's something that is familiar and nice, something that you enjoy drinking that will help you cook better, all right? So for me, it's always different things. Today I've got a little red wine. Other days I may have a grapefruit shandy, and still other days it may be something completely different. In fact, I think going forward at all of the different things that we cook, we may try to have different lubricants to see how they work. So, my friends, instant potheads, follow me. Cuong Can Cook, so will you, and we'll stay lubed and keep cooking.